on energy bills, very much the same story. PM pledges to revolutionise supply as she takes action to ease household fuel crisis. So she's saying we won't get in this mess again with her. And, of course, the Royals again, same picture. The Independent has blow to truss as pound crashes to historic low, which we'll be tackling in a minute. Fears $100 billion energy plan will leave taxpayers with years of debt. Doesn't sound ideal, though I'm no economic expert. The Guardian has trust banks on energy bill freeze in bid to unite party. That same story again about capping the energy bill at $2,500. And they've gone with well played. Walsh breaks world record for women's transfer fee, which we'll also be covering later. We're really on top of the stories tonight, guys. Financial Times has pound slides as markets shudder at scale of challenge facing trust. Seems like it's a tough time for trust. It's almost like Frodo with the ring, like, just can she make it? And they've got Kardashian's latest makeover takes shape with private equity ventures. So Kim, not just a big bum after all. The Mirror have gone with about time. PM Trust bows to Mirror's demand for bills freeze on first day in office. I love the idea that it was the Mirror's demand and Trust is just listening to the paper that despises her. And, of course, they've got School and the gang. They've got that nice photo again of the Royals. And the Daily Express, again going with that pick, and they've gone with Ere They Come, Royal Gang on new school run. This is the gang. And they've gone with I'll prove I'm a woman of action, Liz Truss. And that kind of taps into what Liz Truss was saying in PMQs about being the third woman leader of the Tories, while Labour haven't managed one. And the Daily Star, finally, proper clever boffs say the Son of God was first person to play cricket. And that's a story about how Jesus played cricket, which we'll be covering later. Good to get some Christianity into the show. And they've got It's Tuck and Go, because Tuchel has been sacked from Chelsea. So those are the headlines. Let's get into it. So let's start with Thursday's Independent. And it seems Sterling is doing less than sterling work, Paul.
Oh.
I wrote that.
Excellent, excellent stuff, by the way. Amazing. Warnings of recession rock sterling as investors spooked by Liz Truss's energy bills plan. The pound has slid to its lowest level against the US dollar since 1985, Leo. It's now worth $1.14 to each pound. Now, as soon as I read this, and we talked about it up top, there is a recession on the way. It's because all the money is now weaker. We make money to pay for the old money that we made last year that we haven't paid off yet. One good bit of news out of this, I would say, Nick, is the pound is still top of the charts, though. It doesn't matter how far we plummet, pound is still number one.
I like that. It's very on brand. You've gone with the kind of, we're still bossing it, guys. Even though it's at an all-time low, still higher than the dollar. I mean, I remember it being when you get $2 for £1 back in the halcyon days of the 90s when everything was better, Leo.
Yeah, and also America's been printing money, you know, its own quantitative easing. So they've been weakening their own currency like that. So, I mean, it is worrying for the UK. But, I mean, it's really more of a sign of the strength of the dollar, because the euro has also plummeted against the dollar. So it's gone from being worth 1.2 to just 1 in a year. So I think that's more of a plummet than the pound. So, you know, why isn't this about the dollar being strong rather than the pound being weak? It's quite it's in the Independent who hate the UK.
The dollar's the strongest against the euro in 20 years, as I understand it.
It's a vicious circle, though, isn't it? This is a vicious circle. What we've got here is we paid for furlough, we weren't able to pay that off, and now we're hit with this. And arguably, we found ourselves in a position where our reaction to COVID has caused part of the problem we find ourselves in now, and the only way we can get out of this now is to make more money and buy our way out of it.
We're in a cycle of communism.
We are. We're going to get to a point. I don't know, what is stage 3, Nick?
But, Gulags.
Yeah, exactly.
We're almost there. With the school teachers being jailed for misgendering pupils and stuff like that. If you don't comply with the correct opinion, straight to Gulag, straight to re-education camp.
At least we still have money.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Were you, just slightly off this topic, but related, were you in any way, you know, impressed, Leo, by the fact that Truss is apparently might lift the fracking ban?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, she said that was going to be the first thing she did. One of the first things she did as soon as she was leader. Although since then, she said the Conservative manifesto pledges from 2019 they're not going to be affected, and one of them was a continuation because obviously we're still in the net zero mania then. So one of them was we're not going to frack. So hopefully that's just an oversight on her part, and the first oversight she'll ever make.
I've just realised I set you off on your expert topic there. There should be a new GBNews show, Leo Kurz, on fracking and why it's amazing. Any thoughts on that, Paul? On Truss in general, how she did, at PMQs or anything?
Today, I think she did well. A little bit wooden, but against Starmer, she looked absolutely amazing, I thought. I thought she did really well, to be honest. I think what stood out most is that there are now two clear ideologies on display. We can, for the first time in a long time, see a Conservative leader talking about Conservative policies in a Conservative way against a Labour leader who isn't sure what socialism is anymore. I don't think. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Keir Starmer gets on top.
Yes, it will be interesting. I mean, Truss, she got an open goal today when she said another Labour leader that wants to rise taxes, and the fact that he's from North London. So she did pretty well. But let's go on to Thursday's Guardian, because Truss doesn't trust Dominic Raab's plan, Leo. See what I did?
Right. So Liz Truss has pulled plans to enact a new Bill of Rights in one of her first acts as Prime Minister, telling the Cabinet her government would reassess ways to deliver its agenda. So the outgoing Justice Secretary, Dominic Raab, had this Bill of Rights that was going to basically, the Rwanda debacle where they wanted to deport asylum seekers, or not asylum seekers, just people who cross the channel illegally to Rwanda for processing there, and thereby remove the sort of appeal of the UK, because you just end up in Rwanda if you come across in a little inflatable dinghy. So that was struck down by the European Court of Human Rights, and so this would remove that court's primacy over UK law, which kind of makes sense. It would also strengthen free speech and give us back some of the sovereignty that Brexit was supposed to be all about. But yeah, she scrapped it.
Can we leave it? Can we leave the European Convention of Human Rights? It's international law.
This is the court, this is not the convention.
I thought you meant this story. Could we just leave it, lads?
No. I think it's well worth discussing. So we can step back and we can write our own human rights laws.
Do anything we like.
Well, because we're God Save the Queen, Leo.
Well, no, but we totally can, because we can just say this is what we're going to do, and then we do it.
Yeah, well, it would help, particularly with some of these policies. There's a piece in here about abortion law as well, which I'm sure is due to you guys right up.
Well, I was going to mention that. I mean, apparently Stella Creasy wanted this amendment that changed abortion from just not illegal to an actual right, more in sort of line with what the US tried to do with Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
And I'm obviously against that. What do you guys think to that aspect?
Well, I think abortion, I mean, I don't really mind if it's a right or if it's just illegal. I think people need to have access to safe abortions within limits. I mean, this is the thing, and I think most people, whatever side of the debate they're on, they'll come down on the line that, people do need to have access to abortions in a lot of situations, but it can't be past a certain point, because once a baby's developed past sort of 15 weeks, there's no way it's a pleasant. And if you need an abortion, you're going to know by 15 weeks.
We've already got one of the most liberal laws on abortion in all of Europe, except the Netherlands. When you're up there, when you're there with Holland, you know that you're pretty liberal already.
Basically, everyone's got to have an abortion in Holland, haven't they? By the time they're 21.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm not sure we need to go more liberal, but let's crack on and do Thursday's Telegraph. And does the health secretary need to be the healthy secretary, Paul?
I love this story. I genuinely love this story. I'm not a role model, Therese Coffey questioned over smoking and weight as health secretary. So Therese Coffey responding here to questions about her smoking a cigar while spilling champagne down her top, like a legend, I hasten to add. She says, my focus is on how we deliver for patients, and I appreciate I may not be the role model, but I'm sure the chief medical officer and others will continue to be role models in regard.
And we've got the image there. If the viewer, it doesn't ostensibly look that healthy to the layman, but people were sharing this on Twitter, and they were saying, "Oh, it's terrible. Look out!" People were shaming her. But then there was a picture of Ken Clark from back in the day with a cigar, and people were saying, "Why did he not get the same scrutiny?" Two answers to that: one, he did get scrutiny, and two, Twitter wasn't invented. So there are your answers. And people started saying, "Oh, it's misogyny." It's not really misogyny, is it? It's just people having a go because they're ideological opponents.
Yeah. Although talking of misogyny, I mean, she voted against abortion rights and also voted against same-sex marriage. So
Sounds all right.
She's a Democrat, though. She says that she's not going to go back on that.
She's changed, like Nick
She's
might.
changed like everybody. No, look. You've said all the things that I probably would have said around, the hashtag be kind buffoons on Twitter, proving to us that everybody's the same essentially, no matter what side they're on. The Wallies are always going to say hurtful things to try and make their point. But there's absolutely no requirement, I don't think, for the Health Secretary to be the healthiest secretary. And she, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, she represents me really well in that photograph, so I'm all for it.
It's kind of like having a vegan, meat secretary or, a pacifist defence minister. I think if you're going to be the health secretary, be healthy.
Yeah, I actually sort of agree with that. There was a tweet from Benjamin Butterworth. It was the first time I've ever agreed with him. He had a tweet where he's saying, should this really be the health secretary? And I think there is a little bit of something in it. Like when they were locking us down and they were saying, you guys need to do this for your health. And then it was all these radically unhealthy people doing it, Boris and others. You sort of did feel like, hang on, you're locking me in my house. You don't have a clue about health. And that did annoy a lot of people.
Before today, has anyone really looked at the health secretary, whoever it might be, and thought, that's my health role model? Because I haven't at any point. And
That's a good point.
Have you ever looked at anybody like that?
You didn't look at Matt Hancock as your role model.
Peppa Pig's my role model, and we're going to get to her later on.
OK, well, then we've smashed that story. So let's do Thursday's Times. And as host, I'm completely neutral on all stories. Let's remember that. So the weaponised FBI continues its deranged witch hunt against Donald Trump.
Yeah. So classified material found at Donald Trump's Florida home during a recent FBI search included details of a foreign country's nuclear capabilities, it's been claimed. So he's obviously had the documents for more than 18 months at his private home, which is going to cause concern to members of the international community, because these are, details. There's only, I think, 19 countries in the world that have got nuclear weapons. Not very many countries, anyway. But another way of looking at it is, he loved his work so much, he took it home with him after 9 to 5. You know what I mean? Yeah. Surely he should be promoted.
He's a hard worker. He's a notoriously hard worker.
He should be promoted to emperor. Don't you agree?
I agree. I personally agree. Do you agree, Paul? Should Trump be promoted to emperor?
Yes, I do. Of the world?
Yes, ideally.
Well, I think the galaxy, if I'm honest.
Wow.
But one thing I would say is this whole story relies on us wholeheartedly believing the FBI are both honest and trustworthy. And I'm not sure that they are. So this feels politicised to me. I feel like I've always felt like the FBI politicised.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, if they're worried about sensitive information, sensitive documents being leaked, the FBI have leaked the fact that these documents were at Mar-a-Lago to the media, and surely that's the leak that should be looked at. They're no doubt doing it in collusion with the Democrats. I've got no evidence for that, but they clearly are.
Well, I always like to say it's become one of my little factoids that Bill Clinton lost the nuclear codes. He lost them for months or something. When people used to say to him, Bill, where are those nuclear codes? He'd say oh, how was your golf weekend? He'd distract from it. So this kind of thing has happened before. Is anyone, I mean, what we want, like you say, is an impartial FBI, but does anyone really believe that? Is anyone actually saying that? It seems to me they'll do anything they can to get Trump. Yeah. And then Trump fans will just don't care whatever. It could come out, like Trump said once, I could shoot someone. Yeah. And no one would care.
When they've had so many attempts at, there was a Mueller investigation into Russian collusion. They've had various attempts at impeachment, and they're trying to get him for anything, and it's becoming really obvious, and it kind of looks politicized and like a political vendetta, with the state departments, the FBI colluding with the Democrats to get him, which is a bad look. If you're going to claim, he's anti-democratic and fascist, don't act anti-democratic and fascist yourself.
They never just let him hang himself today. This is only going to help him run for 2024.
Well, unless they can indict him and actually somehow legally stop him running.
They're not going to find enough evidence to do so. I just don't see it.
Really? So you think Trump 2024, he just wins, this helps him?
I don't know if he wins. I mean, this is... the big news is here now, but I do think that he will run.
Would you prefer DeSantis or Trump, either of you?
DeSantis.
Would you? What about you?
Yeah, DeSantis. I couldn't... my dad lives with me, and he spends his whole life hating Trump, so I couldn't bear Trump getting in for another 4 years.
That's a reason to back Trump, but OK, fair enough. You've answered it. Thursday's Telegraph, and it turns out a man's weakness isn't the only thing women can sniff out, Paul.
Lovely jubbly. A new test for Parkinson's developed after a woman sniffed out the disease. A new Parkinson's test has been developed after scientists were able to harness the power of a woman who can sniff out the disease. So this is Mrs. Malign, is it? 72, said that her husband...
Joy Milne.
Milne, sorry. Milne.
Perth, Scotland.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Foreign names.
Another foreign name. Sorry, Leo. I probably could have done with a hand pronouncing that. Said that her husband's smell changed to subtly musky. I mean, if that's the case, then there's a lot of Parkinson's in the green rooms I've been in over the years, I can tell you.
All right, what do you think, Leo?
Well, yeah, she said she can sometimes smell people with Parkinson's while in the supermarket. Basically, she's got a really heightened sense of smell. It's not anybody can do this, but when she's just in the supermarket or walking down the street, she can smell people that have Parkinson's, but she's been told by medical ethicists that she's not allowed to tell them. Which seems, I'd have thought the ethical thing would be to let people know.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, go and get an early diagnosis, then, you know, you can...
It's like Attenborough with the gazelle all over again, though. He can't just say, whoa, watch out, you know, you're going to get eaten by the lion. You know, what can you do? How do you broach that conversation?
That would ruin the show. Everybody watches it to see the lion eating the gazelle. You'd just be boring if it was just a lion and a gazelle going for a walk.
Could you imagine this being a TV show though, where the woman just goes around sniffing people and telling them they've got Parkinson's?
Parkinson's whisperer.
And then finds out, because they're doing studies now to see, you know, if it's really working, what other diseases she can smell. Because there's been dogs in the past that can sniff out cancer and stuff like that, which is...
She's dead.
Yeah. People can...
She's dead.
The lady who could sniff out, she's died.
She died?
Yeah, she died. Not of Parkinson's, but she died at age 65 in 2015.
No, that's her husband.
I thought that was
Fake news, Paul. Fake news.
So I'd like to apologise to the Milne family.
It's called synesthesia, isn't it, where people mix up their senses. We did a story where people could taste names. Can you imagine what Leo tastes like?
Well, if it was written on watermelon, it would taste like watermelon.
Good point. All right, I think that's probably enough for this section. It's a great ending. That's all for part one. Coming up in part two, robot football, why children make you right-wing, and social media might not be a totally good thing after all. See you in two.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel, Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know. The latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, a.k.a. The Big Dog, and I'm here with Paul Cox, Coxie to his friends, I call him Paul, and Leo Kersey to his friends, I call him Leo Curse. Now, Thursday's Guardian, and our children, the key to winning this culture war, Leo.
I was going to say, you better not call Paul the Big... Finish that. So, yeah, apparently having children can make you more conservative, according to this study. So they previously thought that you got more conservative as you got older and got wiser and more invested, more of a stake in society and stopped being an idiot. But apparently it's having children. I can vouch for that. When you have children, I'm having a child not right now, and it is my wife making it, not me.
But you would be here. I can see you as the kind of person, your wife's giving birth, and you're like, I have to work.
Dedicated. But yeah, I mean, you do worry about materially providing for your wife and your child. You worry about the child's safety, and you worry about what the situation of the country is going to be like, what culture is going to be like. What's interesting is, so the birth rate has been dropping in the Western world and in the developing world as well, but in particular in the West. So this could be causing the wave of toxic liberalism that's been sweeping through and destroying our society.
Yeah, it's a problem, isn't it? Elon Musk says we need to get that birth rate up. It's a kind of crisis. Is it just getting richer, or is it just a crisis of confidence in our society? That's a bigger question. Paul, first, what do you think of this story?
Well, to conserve is to protect from harm. So you do become naturally conservative as a parent. A parent that isn't conservative in the true sense of the word is just neglecting their child, aren't they? I mean, what are we supposed to do? What do socialist parents do? I mean, I'm not saying that I'm one or the other, but you can't share your child.
Kind of are.
Yeah, I think I am.
Paul's like, I don't want to out myself as conservative, saying conservative things on GBNews.
Certainly when it comes to parenting, I think I am conservative, and I'm...
Are you a parent?
I am a parent, yeah.
OK.
To a 13-year-old girl, actually. So,
because I just spout the rhetoric, but I'm not actually a parent. but I just sort of I believe in traditional values, but I'm not one. But you actually are.
Yeah, and it did change my view of the world for sure.
Yeah, because it's normally like property, isn't it? People say having property gives you a stake in society, as Leo's implied, getting older. But this, I like the idea. It's actually the children themselves. What are you going to say, Leo?
Well, I was just going to say, so it doesn't. The conservativeness doesn't increase across the board. So parents. Aren't more economically conservative, which is surprising. Actually, I guess it's not, because they want the government to spend money on things like schools, healthcare, daycare centres, cartoons, stuff like that.
One thing that was really interesting about this is just imagining time with a child gave you more socially conservative responses in this test they did. So you didn't even have to have a kid. You just have to think, what would it be like to have one? Oh, I'd be massively right-wing. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
and this might explain why people on the right want to ban abortion, restrict abortion so much. So then those people they'll be forcing people not just to have children, but to vote for them as well.
Yeah, the left's obsession with abortion has got a bit weird, hasn't it? It's gone from rights to, like, celebrating it.
Yeah.
IMH show. Anyway, Thursday's Times, and a very dark story here about the evils of social media, Paul.
A leading psychiatrist said the impact of social media on the mental health of young people was not fully understood. Dangerous crazes which go viral must be investigated, a leading psychiatrist said, as suicide rates for young people in Scotland remained stark. I was really worried about this story until I realised it was young people in Scotland, by the way. That's a joke. I'm paid to be funny.
OK.
You're not laughing.
He took it well.
There's a serious note here, obviously, and
really is.
It seems pretty serious.
It's very serious, and I'll just give you for example. And I genuinely think about this. On a serious note, I have a 13-year-old daughter who has dedicated her life to social media. So this does make me worry. I think this is just for certain types of kids, to be honest. But all kids are led, aren't they? The blackout challenge, for instance, a trend on TikTok which encourages people to film themselves holding their breath until they drop unconscious, has had fatal consequences, believe it or not.
Who knew?
Yeah.
TikTok, TikTok is awful, isn't it? I'm fascinated by your claim, Leo. I've never verified it, that in China, in this country, TikTok is teenage girls dancing, blackout challenges. But in China, it's algebra, it's history, it's learning to be a moral person, and it's China trying to demoralise the West.
Absolutely. TikTok is, because it's a Chinese Communist Party owned and developed that, because it comes from China and they own everything there and control everything. So it's basically to destabilise the West. So it just spreads this degeneracy, this sort of borderline sort of paedophilia type stuff, and things that will damage, even things that will directly kill our children. You know, so it's not just sort of corrupting our culture and things, but directly targeting and killing them. And I think it's tragic. And children spend so much time on this app. If you look at the actual average time per day, we're talking like an hour and a half is the average time per day spent on TikTok, I believe, which is way more than other social media. They make it addictive. It pings the dopamine in their brains that are still developing. And it's there to weaken the West. It's disgusting. We should be clamping down on it. Why are we not developing an app to damage China's society? And in China, obviously, they use the app to strengthen their society. So they reinforce that Chinese culture is good. They educate and they spread good moral values and social values through it instead of degeneracy.
Yeah, we did that story the other day, didn't we? That there was Facebook had discovered some pro-Western propaganda being pumped into places like China. Then they shut it down. I was thinking, why they shut that down? We should be doing more of that, right?
Exactly.
Let's win this war.
It's because Facebook hate the West.
Go on, Paul.
Yeah, well, when we were kids, if the silly kid in the class did something silly, about 8 of us would stand round and cheer until he collapsed or whatever, and that was funny. That was all. That's all. That's all that people would see. Now it's like 8 million kids can see it at once, isn't it? So it's changed the whole dynamic. And how do you stop that?
And it was like the sort of cheapest drug you could do. When I was growing up, you'd do the faint race. You'd crouch down, breathe in and out really fast, stand up, blow on your thumb, and you fall over. And that was done for entertainment in Scotland. I'm not saying Scotland is, it's such a terrible place. You've got to actually black out to get through it. But yeah.
You're kind of saying that, but yeah, I like your image of that, Paul. Like I'd be the person collapsing, Leo would be the one cheering, I suspect. But Thursday's Times again, and an even more dark story about suicide rates amongst young women, Leo.
Well, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is that there's more equality between young men and women. The bad news is that that's because female suicide rates are catching up with men. So suicide rates for women and girls under the age of 24 increased last year by the widest margin since records began in 1981. So they've reached the glass ceiling, but unfortunately they've tied a rope onto it and are killing themselves. So in this category, so women and girls under the age of 24, there are 3.6 deaths from suicide per 100,000. It's still, it's a long way behind men aged 50 to 54. That's the highest bracket for suicide. That's at 22.7 deaths per 100,000. This is a huge, suicide is an epidemic amongst men. It's sad to see it. Women also catching up. They say it's triggered by debt, financial stress and housing instability. And I think with men, it's the erosion of the sort of male status in society and the way that society constantly, if you read The Guardian or whatever, they're constantly pushing this message that men are evil, toxic masculinity, all that kind of stuff. And now it's going over to women as well. It's really sad.
The whole culture is set against men. I think we can all agree on that. But but young women are victims, especially of social media and things like that, and the whole sort of social shaming that goes on. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, no, I was going to make that point, actually. They're held up and measured to a point that they could never really meet or achieve.
They could if they got down the gym.
Well, yes, indeed. Me too. But the context behind this was the jump was during a certain period between 20 and 21, 2020 and 2021.
What happened then?
I can't help but think that COVID.
Yeah, lockdown.
Not COVID, lockdown.
Sorry, yeah, not yeah.
And the sad thing about it is COVID, mainly killed very unwell people. So obese or very elderly people, they were the main risk factors. People with underlying medical conditions. So and suicide mainly kills young, healthy people. And, well, certainly in this category.
I don't think people were getting the help they needed during that time. Yeah. So, we chucked the baby out of the bathwater with a lot of our restrictions, didn't we?
Bad for the baby as well.
Yeah, and bad analogy to use there. Sorry. But I think there are a lot of things a lot of statistics are going to show as we continue through this decade.
Yeah.
Of what impact 2020, 2021.
Absolutely.
I think the solutions aren't the solutions that are being touted. Like, I constantly get this thing, men need to speak more, speak to each other,
no.
Open up to each other. It's like, whoa, that's disgusting. I genuinely feel sick being told that. It's like maybe, and also male suicide has just been going up and up and up since we've been encouraged to talk about our feelings, or feeling, because we only have one. But I think
rage?
I think you don't want to, rage, hunger.
One at a time.
Yeah, you just have one at a time. But once you open that Pandora's box, it's like you open a tent. You can't get that tent back in the bag, and that's what it is with male feelings. So men should just button it up.
Go on, Paul. I thought you were going to say something.
Well, I mean, I'm only allowed to talk to you two in this room. Obviously, I'm forbidden to talk to you once we're outside this room.
Yeah, and keep it surface level.
Yeah, exactly. So I've no idea what you two would be like if I did. I can only imagine, Nick, if I came up to you and said, "I'm feeling very sad today. Can we talk about it?"
Well, do you know what, men? We don't have to
message me and laugh.
We don't have, because we don't have to do that. I saw a great tweet about this saying, actually, men, we don't need to talk about our feelings in that way, and we don't, because we've evolved a complex language of banter that revolves around calling each other gay and pedos. So we don't really need to add anything to that.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Sun next, and the period dignity officer, Leo, is making a stand for his dignity.
That's right. So the man who's hired by a Scots college to explain period products to women is to take legal action after his post as period dignity officer was axed. So Jason Grant, he was taken on by Dundee and Angus College. Oh, they got a college there. That's be teaching them basic arithmetic. But it was axed following a furious international backlash that this was a man mansplaining periods to women instead of a woman womansplaining them. And so he's now he reckons he's been fired, or the post was made redundant because the post doesn't exist anymore because he's a man and because of this backlash. So he's going to pursue claims under the Equality Act of 2010, including a possible claim of sex discrimination.
Yeah.
They're eating themselves, aren't they, Leo? This is the most 2022 story.
Well, if they could eat themselves, they wouldn't need period products.
It's outrageous. This could only happen under, I'm sorry to say this, I'm just about to juice you right up, Nicola Sturgeon's SNP. This isn't happening anywhere else, is it?
No.
Because this isn't going to happen anywhere else. This is what happens.
Not in my house.
Not a chance in your house, Leo. People aren't allowed periods in your house, aren't they? That's... not sure where I'm going with that. I'll stop there, I think. But I would say that they probably made the mistake by putting a man in charge of this in the first place.
Yeah, I've never really grasped what it is still. Period dignity officer just seem like three random words put together.
Like all public sector jobs these days, it's always just a made-up nonsense equality and inclusion coordinator, whatever. It's always a made-up nonsense, and it's a job. They scrap the job. So it can't have been that important. You scrap a job like fisherman, you got no fish. Scrap a job like, the guy driving the train can't go anywhere because there's no driver. Scrap this job, nothing happens except the taxpayer saves money. We should be doing this with all these jobs that are made up and nonsensical.
Nobody was asking for this, were they? No one was demanding this role was put in place at this university.
Exactly.
They've got the internet. Women can work the internet, so they can find out on there what a period is.
Yeah.
Women run the country, Leo.
Mansplained it.
Yeah, good. I'm glad we've stayed away from misogyny, but let's have another go, because Thursday is independent and a record signing fee in women's football, which I assume is around £100, Paul, am I right?
Very funny. Barcelona agree world record fee to sign England star Kira Walsh from Man City. A fee of around £350,000 has been agreed and will see Walsh become the world's most expensive female footballer. Now, just to put some context on this, Kira Walsh was England's player of the match in Euro 2022 final. And before Leo interjects, I'm just going to make my point on women's football. I'm a big football fan, as I know you are, Nick. I think the biggest problem for women's football is its continuous comparison with men's football. If you leave it and measure it on its own merit, it's good and getting better. And that's been proved. No, it is. In fact, it's very good. I did. You're not allowed to interject just yet, Leo.
That's it. I'm letting you do it for me.
No, I genuinely believe it, right? I thoroughly enjoyed seeing the Euros this year, and England did extremely well. And on its own merit, it was very good. And I think the problem for women's football is genuinely the comparison continually with men's football.
Interesting. Can I add one thing to that, though? Don't they sometimes invite that? Because recently Graham Souness said it's a man's game, and he clearly meant not a boys' game. He meant this tough football has come back because VAR has become more lenient, so football's getting a bit more tough again, a bit like it was in the 80s, 90s, especially the 70s. And Souness was saying, hey, it's a man's game. Then there was uproar amongst female footballers on Twitter saying, how dare you? It's misogynist. He was just talking...
No.
So they are inviting the comparison there.
Maybe. And the problem with that is that's how people involved in football, rightly or wrongly, have spoken for decades. Yeah. Since Association Football started, because it was a men's game for a very long time. And, you know, if you've been in a changing room and things aren't going well, you'll be told by the coach to man up. And that's just an accepted part of sport in that arena, I think.
Yeah. But as you say, it is behind, we don't have to compare, but it's behind the men's game. Trevor Francis sold for $1 million in 1979. So, of course, the fees are behind. It doesn't generate as much money. Leo, I know you're a massive football fan. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's good. Like, you know, women footballers and women in general are always moaning that they don't get paid as much as men. And with the case of football, it's obviously because, you know, women's football teams don't generate as much income. So it's good to see a female footballer, you know, getting... Obviously, it's not as, you know, as much as a top-flight male footballer or even a middle-flight male footballer would get. But it's good to see it's a substantial amount, and maybe they'll stop moaning.
I don't know what the salaries are. And by the way, 350,000. My team, Portsmouth, play up Pompey. £350,000 would still be a pretty good deal at the moment.
Yeah, it's not bad. All right, that's part 2 in the bag. After the break, Peppa Pig goes woke, gay dinosaurs, and why Jesus played cricket. Sounds a bit blasphemous, but we'll see you then. No flipping.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
Helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV.
on radio, and online. We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. It's part 3, the final part of the show, where we invariably cover at least one story featuring the word penis. I'm Nick Dixon, and no one has stormed out, so I'm still here with Leo Kearse and Paul Cox. Let's crack on. Thursday's Daily Mail, and civil unrest looms, and not just on this show, Paul.
It's with me, is it? Sorry, I thought we were going... Is this...
Yeah, NATO.
My apologies, Nick. Thanks very much.
It's all right.
Vladimir Putin's energy blackmail over Europe could lead to civil unrest this winter. The NATO Secretary-General has warned, acknowledging that winter will be hard as families and businesses feel the crunch of soaring energy prices and costs of living in the coming months, but says it's vital that the West stands with Ukraine.
Yeah, that part bothered me. It's like, is there a line where, you know, hardship becomes sufficient that people will get sick of this war? I know you're quite big on the war, but is there a line where people say enough, you know, this is actually hurting us too much?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what people need to understand and recognise is that Ukraine is basically fighting our war. So, you know, the front line is in Ukraine, but it's if Ukraine didn't fight, if Romanians didn't fight, if Poland didn't fight, if France didn't fight, which they obviously wouldn't, then the war would be on our shores, as it was with Hitler and that rise of a fascist dictator. So we should recognise that this, you know, Putin is a fascist. He doesn't want to a stop at Ukraine. If he'd taken over Ukraine easily, then he'd be moving on to the next one. This is a serious point. I mean, although we're going to pay more for our gas and electricity bills, they are paying in blood.
Although you're saying Putin would have just carried on. I mean, the fact that we found his military is is weaker than we suspected.
And it certainly is now that Ukraine is wearing it down. I mean, what the Ukrainians have done, and they've lost a lot of lives doing this, and they could have signed, whatever sort of, they could have ceded land or, come to some sort of deal possibly, but they're wearing down Russia's military. And it's also sending a signal to China and Iran and other despotic regimes that, no, you're not going to be able to just go and use military might to do whatever you want. The world will stand against you.
But just quickly, isn't somebody would argue that because we've seen that Putin is militarily weaker than we thought, but at the same time he's able to impose these restrictions on energy, actually it's a decent time to negotiate. But would you call those people appeasers?
It's always a good time to negotiate, but Putin isn't going to... What we've seen from Putin over the last, 20 years is that he makes deals and doesn't stick to them. So, you can't really cut a deal with him. There were already deals in place, there were already agreements in place, and he breached them. Even, he agreed the ceasefire and immediately sent missiles. The next day sent missiles.
Do you think, Leo, that we, the West, Ukraine, have to win this war to stop everything that we're seeing now? Because, I mean, we are all at war, aren't we?
Yeah.
Our war is not being able to afford fuel bills, which is a very minor sacrifice in comparison to what's happening in the Ukraine, but is the only way to see an end to all of these problems to defeat Russia.
Yeah, absolutely. For Putin to be absolutely humiliated and defeated, and for Ukraine to get its land back. And also, we should learn a lesson that you don't trust dictators and despots in future. Don't rely on them for your energy, so that Greta Thunberg can make speeches at Glastonbury. If people say, "Oh, we should have net zero," we should be like, "Well, can we have net zero?" And the answer is no.
Okay. Well, I think we have finally learnt that eventually. But let's do Thursday's mail. And the Wizard Woman is still bad, Leo.
Yeah. So a BAFTA-nominated composer called Christian Henson, who he basically tweeted saying he supported J.K. Rowling over her views on gender rights. He's been cancelled by his own music company, which is worth over 50 million. It's 55 million it's worth.
Spitfire Audio, let's name and shame them.
Spitfire Audio. So he still owns more than a third of the company. So I don't really understand how they could oust him. But yeah, he basically said, as a parent, and that's interesting because, as a parent, you become more conservative.
Yeah.
He said, as a parent, I can no longer keep my mouth shut about this. I'm in full support on Glinner, that's Graham Linehan, and J.K. Rowling. Please look into this. So he's understood to be referring to the Tavistock Clinic, which has been shut down because it was,
evil.
Yeah, basically evil and butchering kids and railroading them into gender transitions. And also there's now a lawsuit with over 1,000 families suing the Tavistock Clinic for damage that's been done to their kids. But yeah, even though he's obviously got a valid point, he's referencing something that was obviously bad. He's not being against the Tavistock Clinic doesn't mean you're against trans people. We can support trans rights, support trans people, but this is the sign of compelled speech we've got in our society.
The nub of this story really is the CEO, Will Evans, being terrified. Terrified because everybody is terrified to share any criticising opinion of transgenderism, including me, and I won't go any further on that, I'm sure. But he has essentially said that the guy sent the tweet out and he's gone, this is going to be bad for us. So he's immediately dismissed his mate.
Yeah.
Which is where we find ourselves on this. There should be debate.
Yeah.
There should be debate.
And it should be
Christian's tweet has caused hurt among our community, which I thought was absolutely pathetic.
Absolutely. What Spitfire Audio community, they're caused hurt. It's an absolute nonsense. So, yeah, he's just compelling people to think a certain way, to express a certain opinion. The correct response, if anybody's upset by somebody, standing up for kids' rights or whatever, the correct response is to be like, fine, be upset. But, we're a company that makes music, it's not going to affect that.
If you have one... and you don't have to have children to feel this way. Maybe you can have a cat and feel this way. But once you do have children, it does make you a lot more emotive about these subjects. There was that film a couple of years ago on Netflix, and I wrote something on Twitter, where they had those kids dancing around in sort of lingerie almost. Cuties. And I actually, my tweet was very upset about it, and I got a lot of criticism for it. But you become very emotive and very conservative as a parent.
Yes, as we've seen. All right, well, speaking of being a parent, Thursday's Independent says Peppa Pig is back in the news because she believes love is love, Paula.
Exactly. I live with my mummy and my other mummy. That's not a statement from me, by the way. That's Peppa Pig introduces first female same-sex couple. Peppa Pig has introduced... the character is, I believe, Penny Polar Bear. And let's face it, right? Peppa Pig is a talking child pig. I don't think it's too much of a leap for us to accept that there can be two lesbian polar bears out there that can also talk. I may have even Googled for it in the past myself.
Interesting. Niche.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is just part and parcel. I don't think any of this seems unusual to me, to be honest. I mean, some of the things that we talk about do seem crazy, and we should be able to have debate. But there are lesbian parents out there.
Yeah.
So why can't we have lesbian polar bear parents?
This is a good way. Are you going to say something negative about it? I can see it.
No.
Don't want your lesbians to be polar bears.
I think this is a good way of doing it. Like, they say, like, there's two mummies. They're not saying, like, if this was on Netflix or something, if this was made by, one of the real progressive activist people, they'd probably have Peppa Pig sex toys or something aimed at children. But it's not. This is just saying, look, you can have families with two mummies.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was going to say, call me a reactionary crank, and you probably will, but, when Disney... There's a line, because Disney went too far. They had that thing. They were desperately trying to impose their ideology on children. They had those leaked calls where one of them called herself a biromantic, asexual, maybe even her. So it went far too far. So there is a line. But OK, fair enough. You've been positive about it. Let's crack on to quite a similar story. And Thursday's Telegraph. I haven't gone into this one in great detail, but I believe it's about gay dinosaurs, Leo.
Yeah, that's right. So that's the Pornhub niche everybody wants to watch. So the Gulf states have demanded that Netflix removes un-Islamic content, accusing Netflix of focusing excessively on homosexuals. This wasn't an email from Nick Dixon. This was genuinely from the States, from state TV in Saudi Arabia. So they also cited there's a Jurassic cartoon or something with two same-sex dinosaurs kissing, or maybe they're
not dinosaurs. They're just characters in the cartoon.
Oh, right, there they are.
Yeah,
well, if you're kissing like that, you're not going to see the T-Rex coming.
But Saudi state media claimed that Netflix was focusing excessively on homosexuals. Probably for them, any amount is excessive. And it said here that, of course, it can be punished by flogging or death in that country. And will the cartoons be flogged, is my question.
Well, they're having a crackdown on homosexuality in Saudi Arabia, which, I thought they were already quite harsh, like quite hard line on homosexuality.
How further down can they crack?
I mean, you can get the death penalty for it. But they flogged a man in one of the most high-profile cases. A man was sentenced to 500 lashes for having a same-sex relationship. So now he's got a fetish as well. I don't think the authorities have thought this through properly. But yeah, Saudi Arabia, they've done a lot of meddling in content. Marvel superhero films. Doctor Strange was pulled from cinemas because there were LGBT references. The Toy Story franchise was banned over a same-sex kiss.
Are they receiving the same Netflix as we're receiving? So is the Netflix all over? Well, they can't. I fully appreciate that Eastern culture is very different to Western culture, and
Middle
Netflix...
Eastern.
Sorry, Middle Eastern. Yeah. Middle Eastern, sorry, I'm not talking about knowledge.
You're like the fact checker tonight, Leo. Let Paul make his point.
Do it afterwards on Twitter under your pseudonym.
People tweet in.
But Middle Eastern culture is different to Western culture, but we wouldn't impose. We're not imposing anything. They shouldn't be. Surely we should be able to have Netflix as it comes in the West, and they can have Netflix at whatever they want over there.
Yeah, you're right. It's a bit like TikTok, mate. There should be separate ones. But anyway, let's skip to Thursday's Sun, Leo, and a story that makes me think our culture might not be the bastion of rectitude I always assumed. This is the twins.
Yes, this woman is definitely on TikTok. So a woman of 19 has been left surprised after she gave birth to twins by two different fathers. So she had sex with them, both of them on the same day, didn't use protection, and now she's had twins, one fertilised by one man, the other fertilised by the other man. So she is made for the streets.
What a way
That's the only thing I'm going to say about that.
What a way to get caught cheating. I didn't know this was possible. Maybe I'm just naive. Maybe I'm incredibly naive when it comes to these things. But it did sound like an urban myth to me, this sort of thing.
Possible.
You're old-fashioned, Paul. You don't.
Yes, I'm a conservative parent. We've already established.
Possible in two ways. The first is if a woman has sex with two different men prior to her ovulation and the sperm are present in the fallopian tubes when the two eggs are released. The other way is if she's sitting at the table with me and Nick.
Why can't I be involved?
And just by osmosis. No, the other... No, it can also happen if a woman has sex with two different men after ovulating and the sperm are then able to fertilise two eggs.
Yeah, and it's called heteroparental superfecundation, just in case anyone was wondering. Let's do Thursday's...
Also known as hoism.
Thursday's Mirror, and Jesus was even cooler than we all already thought, Leo. Let's do Jesus.
OK, let's do Jesus. So Jesus Christ was the first person to play cricket and baseball, according to historians. This is a manuscript from a previously unseen gospel, which I'm guessing was written not thousands of years ago, but in 1985.
Yeah, by a guy called Nigel.
Yeah, so this is historians Tom Holland, Dominic Sandbrook and John Houghton got together to speak about this on the Rest is History podcast, where they discussed who was the first recorded player of the game. But apparently, yeah, in the Armenian Patriarchate of Jerusalem, an 8th century copy of a much earlier gospel, so it is like a long time ago, they describe Jesus in his infancy playing something faintly similar to cricket. So somebody's throwing balls and he's hitting it. Jesus, when the catch is, they made a little joke. The catch is when Jesus, when he chases the ball, can run into the sea.
Yeah, well, the great thing about this is, you have these details in the Bible, and the fact there are all these strange details, you think, why are they there? And it's just because the story of Jesus is true. But anyway, and it also says here that the Son of God wielded a bat nearly 2,000 years before the game was actually thought to have been invented. But of course, God exists outside linear time. What do you think, Paul? I've just put my propaganda out.
No, I love the idea of Jesus playing cricket. I bet he had all the highest run rates going. Rain never stopped play, or it did when he was losing. I can imagine that it was quite something. But how do they keep discovering new gospels? Nick?
I see what you mean. I mean, yes, that is the issue. But I do like the idea of Jesus playing cricket. And like you say, if he's losing, just plague of locusts.
Yeah, whatever you need.
All right. Well, look, I obviously I'm a Christian, so we've had some fun with that story. But everyone should be Christian. So let's do Thursday's Sun and an appalling case of systemic oppression, Paul.
I'm going to say from the outset, I don't believe this story whatsoever. However, balding men feel their hair loss is holding them back from finding true love, according to research. The study of 800 adult males who have thinning or no hair found 73% claim to have less luck on the dating scene than friends with hair. I don't believe this at all. I mean, how often... Women love balding hair, don't they? Well, balding men.
A certain type of balding man.
Yeah, not a comb over.
But also, like, if you're muscly and you don't... I've got a pointy head, so I had to get a hair transplant. Because if I tried shaving my head, and I look like a pinhead.
You went to Turkey, didn't you?
I went to Turkey, yeah. It's a great place to...
This just focuses on the head. I mean, Jeff Bezos is bald. I've got loads of hair.
Yeah, but Jeff Bezos isn't attractive. I don't think women are like...
I think you'll find that billions of pounds makes people very attractive, Leo.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if you look at who's considered attractive, there's like Sean Connery. I mean, he is dead now, so that doesn't work. But Bruce Willis, he's still alive, although he's got dementia, apparently. Jason Statham, bald.
Yeah, but it all depends. Like you say, if you're a lucky bald person that happens to look good with it, and, that's not everyone. It's just another type of oppression, like people who are under 6 foot and so on. You guys wouldn't understand. But anyway, I'm probably going to... Go on, Paul, last word.
No, there were no other words from me. I don't believe it.
Well, I think these men are just pinning their insecurities on something.
OK, well, I totally disagree, and I stand with the ball men. But that's all for tonight. Thanks to Paul Cox and Leo Kirst. I'll be back tomorrow, unless I get an unfortunate email from the bosses, and I'll be with Josh and Leo. So make sure you tune in again at 11 p.m. But for now, good night and God bless.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.